At 18, my dad beat me up and abandoned me on the road after I refused to give up my future. You're nothing without this family, he spat. So I filed a police report and never went home again. 3 years later, I went back to face him. All right, Reddit. This happened 3 years ago. I'm Blake, 21 male. Life's good now, but that night still sticks with me, so I'm writing it out once and for all. I turned 18 in March. By April, I was paying $400 a month to sleep in the same bedroom I'd had since I was 6. 3 days after my birthday, Dad sat me at the kitchen table and hit me with adult rent. $400 a month, due on the 1st, cash only. Food wasn't included either. Mom sat there nodding like it was normal. After that, every month I'd leave an envelope on the counter before work. Dad would count it in front of me like I was a tenant. I graduated with a 3.7 while working at an auto parts store since I was 16. I wasn't lazy. I was saving to get out. I had one goal since sophomore year: get out. I found a welding certification program in Ohio that was basically my exit ramp. Full scholarship, stipend, 18 months, and a straight shot into a job if you didn't mess around. I applied in January of my senior year. Got the acceptance letter in May, 3 weeks before graduation. Read it 3 times before I believed it was real. That night, I made the mistake of telling my parents at dinner. My mom's face did that thing where she smiles with her mouth, but her eyes go flat. My dad just grunted and asked who was going to help around the house if I left, like I was staff. I told them the program started in August, 3 months away. Plenty of time to figure things out, plenty of time to adjust. That's when my sister Jennifer walked in. Jennifer was 25 and fresh off a divorce because she got caught cheating, not just with one guy. Her ex, Miles, got primary custody, and she moved back into her old room like it was a long-term plan. Because it was. Within a week, everything in the house changed. Jennifer didn't cook, clean, or contribute a dime, but somehow she had opinions about everything. She'd eat my groceries, mess with my laundry, and complain about my TV while Braden was screaming at 7 a.m. when he was there. Then the babysitting requests started immediately. I need you to watch Braden tonight. I have a client. I need you to pick him up from Miles's. I need you to keep him Saturday. I need you to take him to his doctor's appointment. The first few times I helped because he's my nephew and I'm not heartless. I didn't mind hanging out with him when Jennifer actually needed help. But she didn't need help. She needed a servant. Watch Braden. Pick him up. Take him here. Cover her custody time. I helped at first because he's my nephew, but it turned into her using me like a built-in nanny. She'd ask for 2 hours and disappear for 6, then act annoyed if I asked where she was. "Don't you dare lecture me, little brother," she'd say. The worst was a Tuesday in early June. Jennifer asked me to watch Braden for 2 hours while she met a client. I said fine, but I had a shift at the auto parts store starting at 4. She promised she'd be back by 3:30. 3:30 came. No Jennifer. I called her 6 times. Straight to voicemail. I texted. Nothing. By 3:50, I was panicking. I couldn't leave a 3-year-old alone, and I couldn't bring him to work. I called my manager, Doug, and told him I had a family emergency. He wasn't happy, and I could tell my reliability was starting to look shaky. Jennifer rolled in at 7:30. Over 4 hours late. She walked through the door with shopping bags, not even apologizing, just saying traffic was crazy, and her phone died. I told her she'd cost me a shift and almost cost me my job. She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic. That's the word she loved. And my parents? They enabled every single bit of it. Mom would say your sister is going through a difficult time, and family helps family. Dad would grunt about how real men step up when their family needs them. Neither of them ever asked their precious daughter to step up for anything. Meanwhile, I was 18, paying rent, working 20-plus hours a week at the parts store, trying to save for my future, and being treated like the household staff. The scholarship program had a deadline. I had to confirm my enrollment by July 15th and arrive on campus in Ohio by August 20th. Housing was arranged, but I had to sign the paperwork. The stipend would kick in once classes started, but I'd need savings to cover the gap. I could do this. I just had to survive the next 3 months without my family torpedoing everything. So I started preparing quietly. I printed my paperwork, signed what I needed, and packed the basics where nobody would notice. I kept my head down, worked, paid rent, and counted the days until I could finally leave. The intervention happened on a Thursday night in early July. I came home from work around 6, tired from a busy shift. Braden's booster seat was in Jennifer's car, which was weird because it was supposed to be Miles's week. She must have picked him up early. When I walked in the front door, all 3 of them were sitting in the living room and waiting like vultures. Dad, Mom, and Jennifer. We need to talk about this Ohio thing. Dad said it like Ohio was a disease I'd contracted. I set my keys on the counter and stayed standing. I wasn't going to sit down and get cornered in some rehearsed ambush. There's nothing to talk about. I already confirmed my spot. That was true. I'd sent the enrollment confirmation the week before because I could feel something coming. I'd signed the housing paperwork. I'd notified my manager at the parts store that my last day would be August 15th. Everything was locked in. Mom leaned forward with that manipulative, soft voice. Honey, we've been talking, and we think it might be better if you deferred for a year. Maybe two, just until Jennifer gets back on her feet. I looked at Jennifer. She was still scrolling her phone like this conversation was beneath her. Gets back on her feet how? She doesn't have steady work. She doesn't pay rent. She doesn't watch her own kid most of the time. What's the plan here? Jennifer's head snapped up. Excuse me? I'm building a business. You have no idea how hard that is. You have no idea what I'm dealing with. Do you have any idea how much I suffer as a single mom? Yeah, but you're enjoying your single life without the mom part. I shot back. She didn't like that. I turned back to my parents. You want me to give up a full scholarship and stipend, plus the program's job placement pipeline, so I can babysit and keep paying you rent while Jennifer figures out new restaurants? Dad's jaw tightened. He had that look he gets when he's about to turn the conversation into a lecture. First of all, watch your tone. Second, this isn't about babysitting. This is about responsibility. This is about you thinking you're too good to help when we need you. I kept my voice flat. I've been helping for 3 months straight while paying $400 a month to live in my childhood bedroom. Jennifer pays nothing. She contributes nothing. And you're asking me to throw away my future so she can keep doing nothing. Mom's eyes got wet. She's had her whole support system ripped away from her. Her marriage, her home, her stability. She's hurting, Blake. She needs us to... She cheated, I snapped. That's on her. She blew up her own marriage. So pardon me if I'm not feeling bad for her. Maybe you should let her face the consequences for once. The room went dead silent. Even Jennifer froze. She stood up, face red, and started screaming. About how I was a judgmental little brat who didn't understand adult relationships. About how I'd never had a real relationship, so I couldn't possibly know what it was like. About how Miles was controlling and emotionally unavailable and she deserved to be happy. Dad pointed at me. Apologize to your sister. Now. I didn't apologize. I walked to my room and locked the door. For the next hour, I could hear them talking in the kitchen. Dad's voice was low. Mom was agreeing in that soft murmur she does when she's backing him up without saying anything directly. Jennifer was crying, probably milking the sympathy. I texted my best friend Mason. Things are getting bad here. Family ambush tonight. If I don't check in with you by tomorrow night, something went wrong. I'm serious. Mason and I had been friends since 7th grade. We'd done everything together. School, summer jobs, video games, all of it. His parents were good people. His dad was a retired electrician who did consulting work now. His mom worked at the library and made the best meatloaf I'd ever had. I'd spent half my high school years at their house. Mason replied immediately. What do you need? I thought about it for a second, then typed out a plan. If I text you the word fine in all caps, that means I'm not fine. If I don't respond to you for more than 3 hours during the day, call me twice. If I still don't answer, call your dad and start looking. He sent back, got it. Share your location. I turned on location sharing. He confirmed he could see me on the map. Then he sent his dad's number in a separate message. I saved the number in my phone. Turned out that was the smartest thing I'd ever done. 2 days later, on a Saturday afternoon, my dad knocked on my bedroom door. His voice was different, softer, almost friendly, the kind of tone I hadn't heard from him in years. Hey, can we talk? Just us, man to man. I think we got off on the wrong foot the other night, and I want to fix things. Every instinct I had was screaming that this was a trap, but some small, stupid part of me still wanted to believe my father was capable of being reasonable, that he might actually apologize for the ambush, that maybe we could work something out where I left for Ohio without nuking every relationship in my family. My father was an a-hole, yes, but gosh, I never imagined he'd go that far. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, I opened the door. He suggested we go for a drive. Said he always thought better when he was moving. Said he wanted to explain some things without Mom and Jennifer around to get emotional. Just two guys having a conversation. I grabbed my phone, checked the battery. 12%. Should be fine for a short drive. Grabbed my jacket even though it was July because the weather had been weird all week. We got in his truck. The sky had been building all day. Dark clouds stacking up to the west. The radio weather report said severe thunderstorm warning for the county starting around 7 or 8 p.m. It was maybe 4:30 when we pulled out of the driveway. Dad turned off the main road about 20 minutes into the drive, heading away from town, toward the rural areas where the houses got sparse and the farmland stretched out to the horizon. Where are we going? I asked. Just driving. He kept his eyes on the road. His voice was still friendly, but there was something underneath it now. I want you to understand something, Blake. This family has given you everything. Roof over your head, food on the table, a place to land whenever you needed it. And now, when we need you to step up, you want to run off to Ohio like none of that matters. But I've been paying rent since I turned 18. I work. I buy my own food. I contribute more to this household than Jennifer does. That's not giving me everything. That's charging me to exist in my own family. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. We could have charged you more. We could have kicked you out the day you turned 18. Some parents do that. But we didn't. Because family takes care of family, and family means sacrifice. The rain started, light at first, just speckling the windshield, then heavier, then heavy enough that the wipers struggled to keep up. We were on a county road now, the kind with no lines painted and barely any shoulder, nothing around but cornfields and the occasional barn. I checked my phone. 1 bar of signal, then no bars. Dad, I need you to turn around. The storm's getting worse. You're not going anywhere until you understand what you're about to throw away. He pulled off onto a gravel access road that led to an old grain elevator, the kind of place that probably hadn't been used in years. No lights, no other cars, nothing but the rain hammering the windshield and wind rocking the truck on its suspension. Dad, I want to go home. He didn't answer, just turned in his seat, face completely flat, and reached across the console. Grabbed my jacket collar before I could react. I tried to pull back, but he had 60 pounds on me, and he'd been doing physical labor his whole life. He slammed me against the passenger door. My head cracked against the window. I put my hands up and he hit me twice in the ribs. Controlled, deliberate. I couldn't breathe. The pain was immediate and sharp. I tried to open the door and he grabbed my arm, wrenched it back hard. He reached into my jacket pocket and took my phone. Checked the screen. 7% battery. No signal. He tossed it into the ditch, into the weeds where I'd never find it in the dark. Then he leaned across me, popped the door, and shoved me out. I hit the gravel hard, hands first, then knees. Rain soaking through instantly. By the time I looked up, his taillights were already disappearing down the road. No words, no speech, just gone. I was about 40 miles from home. I checked later on a map. No phone, no wallet because I'd left it on my dresser. Ribs screaming every time I took a breath. Storm getting worse by the minute. The first 10 minutes, I just sat there in the mud, trying to understand what had just happened. My own father had just beaten me and left me in a storm in the middle of nowhere. Like I was garbage, like I was nothing. I looked for my phone anyway, crawled around in the ditch for a few minutes, hands in the mud, rain hammering my back. Couldn't find it. He knew what he was doing. Location sharing was useless now. It only showed my last ping near home before the signal dropped. Once the phone got tossed, it was just a dead piece of plastic in a ditch somewhere. I had to move. Sitting here wasn't going to help anything. I picked a direction and started walking. The county road had no shoulder to speak of, no streetlights, no houses visible in either direction, just fields and rain and darkness. I had to walk on the gravel edge and jump into the ditch whenever a car passed, which wasn't often. Maybe one every 10 or 15 minutes. Headlights would blind me and then they'd be gone, tail lights disappearing into the storm. Nobody stopped. I probably looked like a drowned rat stumbling down the road, or a crazy person, or both. Every step hurt. The ribs were the worst part, but my whole body was starting to ache. I walked for over an hour, maybe closer to 90 minutes. Hard to track time when you're just putting one foot in front of the other and trying not to collapse. Finally, I saw lights ahead. A truck stop. One of those big 24-hour places with a gas station and a diner. I pushed through the door, and the warmth hit me like a wall. The guy behind the counter took one look at me and his face changed. "You okay, man? Do you need help? I need to borrow a phone." "Mine's dead." He handed me his cell without asking questions. I dialed Mason's dad. He picked up on the third ring. "Mr. Henson, it's Blake. Something happened. I'm at a truck stop. Miller's Travel Center. Stay inside. Stay warm. We're coming." He hung up. The clerk brought me coffee and let me sit in a booth. About 45 minutes later, Mason and his dad walked through the door. Mason's face went white when he saw me. "We're going to the emergency room first, then the police station." He sat down across from me. "Tell me everything." I told them everything. All of it. When I finished, Mr. Henson nodded once. "We're going to do this right. Medical records first. Then we file a report. After that, we figure out the next steps. But for tonight, you're staying with us. Understood?" "Yes, sir." The ER visit took almost 4 hours. They did x-rays that showed 2 bruised ribs on my left side. Not fractured, but close. They photographed the bruising on my torso, my arm where he'd grabbed me, the scrapes on my hands and knees and forehead. They checked me for concussion and decided I probably had a mild one, but nothing that needed hospitalization. The nurse who did the photos was professional, but gentle. She'd clearly done this before. Domestic situations, she called it, a polite term for family members hurting each other. She gave me copies of everything and a report number, and told me the records would be available if I needed them for legal purposes. After the ER, we went to the sheriff's station. Filing the report took another 2 hours. I told the deputy everything. He asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. He explained that the case would go to the district attorney's office for review. They couldn't promise an arrest that night, but the report combined with the ER photos and documentation gave it teeth. He gave me a case number, a victim's advocate contact card, and told me not to return home alone. By the time we got to Mason's house, it was almost 3 in the morning. Mrs. Henson had waited up. She didn't ask questions, just hugged me and showed me to the guest room. I slept for 12 hours straight. The next few days were a blur of logistics and legal stuff, and trying to process what had happened. I couldn't go back to my parents' house, obviously, but all my stuff was there. My clothes, my laptop, my documents, my savings and cash hidden in my closet, everything I owned. Mr. Henson knew how to handle it. The process was called a civil standby. You request it through the sheriff's department. Officers accompany you to retrieve your belongings. They keep things peaceful and make sure nobody interferes. We scheduled it for 4 days after the incident. Gave my ribs time to feel slightly less terrible. Gave the bruises time to really bloom into impressive purple and yellow marks. 2 deputies met us at my parents' house at 10 in the morning on a Wednesday. My dad's truck was gone, which I'd been hoping for. I didn't know if he'd been arrested or warned or what, but his absence made everything easier. My mom's car was in the driveway. I walked up to the front door with officers on either side of me. Mason and his dad stayed by the car as witnesses. My mom answered the door. Her face went through shock, confusion, fear, and then settled on that fake concern she does so well. Blake, honey, what's going on? Why are the police here? I'm here to get my belongings. I'm not staying. This is a civil standby. She tried to block the doorway. Her voice got soft and pleading. He didn't mean it. You know how your father gets sometimes. We can work this out. You don't have to involve strangers in family business. One of the deputies stepped forward. Ma'am, he has a legal right to retrieve his belongings. I need you to step aside and let him enter. She moved, but she followed me to my room and talked the entire time I packed. The deputy had told me beforehand, 15 minutes, grab essentials. Don't engage with anything they say. Clean extraction. I had a mental list. Birth certificate from the lockbox in my closet. Social security card. The folder with my Ohio paperwork. Laptop and charger. Clothes that fit in 2 duffel bags. Work boots and PPE. The cash I'd hidden in a hollowed-out book on my shelf. Almost $800 in savings. Tools I'd bought with my own money. Receipts still in the cases. Mom kept yapping the whole time. About how I was overreacting. About how families fight sometimes. About how I'd regret this. I didn't respond to any of it. Jennifer appeared in the hallway about halfway through. When she saw the deputies, her face twisted into something ugly. You called the cops on Dad? Are you serious right now? Do you have any idea what this is going to do to our family? I kept packing. You're so dramatic. He barely touched you. You're acting like he tried to kill you. One of the deputies told her to step back. She didn't listen, just kept going, calling me names, saying I was ruining everything, saying I'd always been the problem in this family and this just proved it. Ma'am, the deputy said, firmer this time. You need to calm down or we're going to have a different conversation. She shut up after that. But the look she gave me could have melted steel. I finished packing, walked through the house one last time to make sure I hadn't missed anything important, stopped at the kitchen counter and set down my house key. My mom started crying, the performance of a victim. I walked out the front door and got in Mr. Henson's car without looking back. The next 6 weeks were the hardest of my life, but also the most important. I stayed with Mason's family until I left for Ohio. They refused to let me pay rent even though I tried multiple times. Mrs. Henson just said, you're 18 and you're going through something terrible. Save your money. You're going to need it. Mr. Henson helped me set up a new bank account at a different credit union, one my parents had no connection to. Mason drove me to work and back because my car was technically registered in my dad's name, and I didn't want any complications. I gave my 2 weeks notice at the auto parts store. My manager didn't ask too many questions. He just said he'd heard something about family trouble, and if I ever needed a reference, he'd give me a good one. That meant a lot. The harassment from my family started almost immediately. My mom texted from her regular number at first. Long messages about how worried she was, how she couldn't sleep, how the family was falling apart. When I blocked her number, she started texting from other phones. Borrowed a friend's, got a prepaid. Always the same tone, pleading and guilt-tripping at the same time. Why are you doing this to us? Don't you love your family anymore? Your father is suffering too, you know. She sent flying monkeys too. An aunt I hadn't talked to in years called to tell me I was being cruel and breaking my mother's heart. A cousin messaged on Facebook saying he'd heard I'd gotten my father arrested, and did I realize what that would do to his job and his reputation? I saved everything. Every text, every voicemail, every message. The victim's advocate had told me that documentation matters, especially if things escalate. My dad never contacted me directly. I found out later his lawyer had advised him to have zero communication with me while the investigation was ongoing. The criminal case moved slow. The DA's office took weeks to review everything. The detective assigned to my case interviewed me twice, once right after I filed the report, and once about a month later. He said assault cases involving family members were tricky. Without witnesses, it often came down to physical evidence and credibility. My documented injuries helped. The medical records helped. My consistent story helped. In the end, they offered my dad a plea deal. Misdemeanor assault, mandatory anger management classes, 2 years probation, no jail time. He took it because fighting it would have meant a trial and more scrutiny. It wasn't the justice I wanted. Part of me wanted him in a cell, but it was something. It was a record that would follow him. Yes, he didn't go to jail, but he lost the one thing he actually cared about: control, reputation, and the image of the man he pretended to be. I got the notification about the plea deal 2 months after I'd already started the program in Ohio. Ohio was actually good. The program was intense. Classroom instruction in the mornings covering metallurgy, blueprint reading, safety protocols, welding theory. Hands-on training in the afternoons, actually running beads and learning different techniques. Homework at night, studying for certification tests. It was a lot, but I was built for it. I'd been working and going to school simultaneously for years. This was just more of the same, except now I was learning something I actually cared about. My roommate was a guy named Devin from somewhere in Kentucky. Quiet kid, didn't talk much, but he always had coffee ready by 6 a.m. and he never complained when I came back late from the training lab. We got along by staying out of each other's way, which was exactly what I needed. I lived cheap that first year. Rice and beans, peanut butter sandwiches, ramen when I was feeling fancy. I bought a used car from another guy in the program. Thing ran rough, but it ran, and that was all that mattered. I got a weekend job at a hardware store near campus. Not many hours, but enough to slowly rebuild my savings. Between the stipend and the part-time work, I was surviving. Barely, but surviving. The paid internship started in month 6. A fabrication shop that made components for agricultural equipment. Industrial welding, real work, 40 hours a week plus the remaining coursework in the evenings. I was exhausted all the time. My hands were calloused. My back hurt. But I'd never been happier. The moment it clicked was about 4 months in. We had a practical assessment, vertical upweld, 3G position, instructor watching over your shoulder with a clipboard. Most guys in the class were nervous, hands shaking, beads coming out rough or undercut. I set up my plate, checked my settings, struck the arc, and just let everything else go quiet. Steady hand, consistent travel speed. Watch the puddle form and flow exactly where I wanted it. When I finished, the instructor looked at my bead for a long time. Then he nodded once and wrote something on his clipboard. That's a pass. Clean work. That word meant more to me than anything my father had ever said, because I'd earned it. Mason and I stayed in touch through all of it. Video calls on weekends when neither of us was working. He was doing community college back home, HVAC certification program, still living with his parents but saving money. His dad checked in occasionally too. Short text messages. Hope things are going well. Let me know if you need anything. The family harassment tapered off after about 8 months. I think they finally realized I wasn't coming back. Or maybe they just found something else to focus on. Either way, the messages stopped. The flying monkeys stopped. The silence was a relief. I finished the program with high marks. Got hired full-time at a manufacturing plant in Columbus. Different company than the internship, but bigger. Better pay. Benefits. The kind of job that actually builds into something over time. I moved into my own apartment. Studio, but felt like heaven. I bought furniture at thrift stores. I slept on a mattress on the floor for 3 months until I could afford a bed frame. I budgeted every dollar like my life depended on it, because for a while it kind of did. Slowly, things got better. The paycheck grew. The savings grew. The credit score went up. I bought a truck, used but solid, paid it off in 18 months. I started dating a girl named Cassie who worked in hospital administration. Smart, funny. Eventually, I told her about my history, and she never judged me for it. Your father seems like a narcissistic control freak. Thank gosh you left. I'm so proud of you, she said once. Mason moved out to Ohio about a year after I did. Got a job doing HVAC installation at a commercial company. We split a 2-bedroom apartment for a while until he got his own place. Still grabbed dinner most weeks. Still had each other's backs. 3 years after my father left me on that road, I was 21 with a stable career, my own apartment, a reliable vehicle, and people in my life who actually gave a dang about me. Not bad for a kid who was supposed to learn his place. The call that changed everything came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was at work when my phone buzzed. Number from back home, area code I recognized but didn't have saved. Something made me answer. Blake? It's your cousin Tessa. I know we haven't talked in forever, but something weird happened. I need a quote on some custom fabrication work for a project, and your company came up in my search. Then I saw your name in the employee directory. Small world, right? Tessa was my mom's brother's daughter. We'd been close when we were little kids, drifted apart as teenagers when our families stopped getting together as much. She'd never been part of the harassment campaign after I left. She'd stayed neutral, which in my family counted as loyalty. We talked business for a few minutes. Her project was legitimate, some custom brackets for a renovation she was managing. I told her I'd get her a quote and forward it to her email. Then she went quiet for a second. Hey, I don't know if you want to hear this or not, but things got really bad back home after you left. Like, really bad. I leaned back in my chair. Go ahead. It came out in pieces. She wasn't trying to guilt trip me or advocate for anyone. She was just telling me what happened because she thought I should know. After my case went public, even though it was just a misdemeanor, people in town found out. Small community, word travels. My dad's employer didn't fire him, but they definitely pushed him to the side, passed him over for promotions he should have gotten, made his life uncomfortable enough that he eventually took early retirement, which meant reduced benefits. His reputation at church took a hit too. Some people stopped talking to him. Some of the guys he'd known for 20 years started keeping their distance. He'd always been the type to care deeply about what people thought of him. Being seen as the man who beat his son and left him in a storm was not the image he'd cultivated. Then, about 18 months ago, he had a stroke. Not a massive one, but bad enough to affect his mobility on the left side. Arm doesn't work right, leg drags, speech is slurred when he's tired. He had to stop working completely. Disability covers some of the bills, but not all of them. My mom went back to work part-time at a grocery store to make ends meet. And Jennifer? Jennifer lost custody completely about a year ago. Miles had been keeping records of everything. Every missed visitation. Every time she dumped Braden on someone else. Every inconsistency in her schedule. The judge looked at the pattern and decided she wasn't a reliable parent. Gave Miles full custody with supervised visitation only. After that, she moved to Arizona with some guy she met online. Barely kept in contact with anyone back home. Basically abandoned her kid. So your mom is alone taking care of your dad, Tessa said. And your sister is gone. And your dad is just broken, I guess. Physically and otherwise. I thanked her for telling me. Told her I'd send that quote over by end of day. We said goodbye and hung up. I sat at my desk for a long time thinking about what she'd told me. Not feeling sorry for them. Not feeling vindicated either. Just thinking. 2 days later, my mom called. I almost didn't answer, but I figured I might as well hear what she wanted. Her voice was older than I remembered. Tired. After 3 minutes of awkward talk, she finally said it. Blake, honey, I know I have no right to call after everything, but your father isn't doing well. He can barely walk some days. He can barely talk. I'm doing everything by myself, and it's so hard. I just thought maybe you could come visit. Maybe we could start fresh, put the past behind us. I let the silence stretch for a few seconds before responding. You called me dramatic when I had bruised ribs, Mom. Silence. Blake, You sent relatives to guilt trip me and tried to cover up for what your feed-up husband had done to your own son. And now that he's sick, suddenly you want to put everything behind us. She started crying. I never wanted any of this to happen. Your father just has a temper. He didn't mean to hurt you. It got out of hand. He drove me 40 miles from home and left me in a storm after beating me. You're still twisting the truth. More crying. Then the real reason for the call came out. We're struggling, Blake. The medical bills, the house payment, the medications. If you could just help a little bit, just until we get back on our feet. You have a good job now. You're doing well. I'm sure your heart won't let you watch us suffer like this, right? We're your own blood. There it was. 3 years of radio silence, and the first real contact was a request for money. No decent apology. No. Blake, please, we're your parents. You can't just abandon us when we need you. You abandoned me first. I'm not giving you money. I'm not giving you anything. I don't owe you shit. I hung up. That night hit different. Yeah, I cried a bit. I was mad. That old memory I'd been trying to keep buried decided to crawl right back up. Cassie found me sitting alone in the bedroom, and she clocked it immediately. Blake, what happened? Nothing, babe. Something got in my eye. Yeah, sure. I'm not dumb. What is it? So I gave her the short version. She just pulled me into a hug and held on tight. No words. And honestly, that was exactly what I needed. A week later, I decided something. I drove back to my hometown because I needed to close the door for myself. His probation had ended several months earlier. No active no contact order anymore. Legally, there was nothing stopping me from showing up. Mason came with me. We took his truck, made it a day trip. I didn't tell my mom we were coming. The house looked worse than I remembered. Paint peeling on the trim, peeling on. Lawn patchy and overgrown. The whole place looked tired. I knocked on the door and my mom answered. She looked like she'd aged 15 years in the 3 since I'd seen her. Gray in her hair, lines around her eyes, thinner than she used to be. Blake. Her eyes went wide. You came. She reached out to touch me, and I stepped back. Silence stretched for a moment. I'm not staying. I'm here to see him. She nodded. Led me through the house to the back bedroom. They'd converted it into a hospital room, basically. Medical equipment. The smell of sickness. My dad was propped up in the bed. Left arm curled against his chest. Left leg useless under the blanket. Face thinner, grayer, slack on one side from the stroke. His eyes widened when he saw me. Blake? I stood at the foot of the bed. Didn't move any closer. He tried to push himself up, but couldn't. His good hand gripped the bedsheet. He tried to say something. I didn't give him the chance. Don't wear yourself out. You're already tired. Son, please, just hear me. He could barely get the words out. I'm so sorry. I regret everything. Save it. I'm not here for apologies. And I know dang well I'm never going to forgive you. Tears started falling, and he couldn't even respond. My mom was standing by the door crying too. I looked at both of them and felt nothing. I spent my whole life wishing you were different. Wishing you'd treat me like I was actually your son. I kept my voice steady. But you didn't. You treated me like a servant. You wanted me to know my place. And I did. I paused for a second, just to let it sit. Now you don't get access to the man you forced me to become. He said nothing, so I turned and walked out. My mom tried to stop me at the door. He's still your father? Can't you find it in your heart to forgive? He made his choice. So did I. I walked out and got in Mason's truck. The drive back to Ohio was quiet. We stopped for gas and food at a truck stop about halfway. Mason asked if I was okay. I told him I was, and I meant it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.